Hello and welcome to our live broadcast of Bringing It All Together, Facility Preparedness Program, and presented by David Silver, Joshua Miller, and Anna Strong. David is an emergency management planner at LANL. Although newcomer to both LANL and DOE, he brings a wealth of knowledge and experience from state and local emergency management. David's work on LANL's Facility Preparedness Program focuses on the development of standardized templates and checklists and the development of Preparedness Geographic Information System tool for the workforce. Joshua is an emergency operations manager in the Emergency Preparedness Group, also at LANL. He has been at Los Alamos since 2008. He has been involved in various projects, including extensive readiness reviews, project management, emergency planning, strategic initiatives, and emergency response activities. Prior to joining the laboratory, he worked for the state of Texas Emergency Management, coordinating off-site response for commercial nuclear reactors and community emergency planning. Joshua holds a BS in geology from Brigham Young University and an MS in emergency management from Anna Maria College. Anna is the team leader of the Deployed Emergency Preparedness within Emergency Management Division, also at LANL. In addition to her supervisory responsibilities for all Deployed Emergency Preparedness Program, Anna is responsible for the implementation and maintenance of the LANL Facility Preparedness Program in compliance with DOE Order 151.1 Delta, Comprehensive Emergency Management System, and the EMD Plan 100. Anna has over 16 years of emergency management experience from the Nevada National Security Site. Anna played a key role in DOE implementation at NNSS and is very knowledgeable of the Hazardous Material Program and core program requirements. Anna holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and Criminal Justice from Middle Tennessee State University. And with that, I would like to turn the stage over to our wonderful presentation. Over to you all.
Hi, my name is David Silver. I'm an emergency planner with LANL's Emergency Management Program. Today we're going to talk to you about bringing it all together, the Facility Preparedness Program here at LANL. Joining me today is Joshua Miller, Senior Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, myself, and then Anna Strong, our team leader for Deployed Emergency Preparedness, is going to join us for questions at the end. We've got three sections to go through this morning. We're going to look at how we got here with the Facility Preparedness Program, where we've been in the past, the development and implementation of this program, and then the vision of where we're really going with this. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joshua Miller, who's going to talk to you about where we've been.
Okay, my name is Josh Miller. I'm a Senior Emergency Preparedness Coordinator here at the laboratory in Los Alamos. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about the site profile for the laboratory, just as kind of a background on some of the challenges that we've had in dealing with a comprehensive facility preparedness program. Los Alamos is roughly the size of Washington, D.C. And so we've got a lot of ground to cover. We have roughly 15,000 or so employees and contractors on site, and we run the whole gamut of chemical, biological, radiological hazards, which is pretty significant quantities of all of those here at the laboratory. We do have implemented a facility operations director model here, where we have 5 facility operation directors, or sometimes we call them FODs, that are responsible for the implementation of our emergency management program, which is a little bit unique for within the complex. We realized early on that we had a pretty good need to really have a standardized program. Every facility operations director was implementing the emergency management program just a little bit differently. A lot of that was personality based, funding dependent. There was all kinds of challenges associated with that. We really started realizing that there was an inconsistent application of the requirements from implementation of the DOE orders to NFPA requirements. We started to see that there was, with the facility operations directors being responsible for the implementation of the emergency preparedness program, it was very inconsistent. A lot of times we had, a conflict as well. We had, our emergency management program would create and establish program requirements, and there was maybe some conflict with our programmatic organizations. Again, that caused some challenges. And then we had, we had our first responders. There was some concern from them when they would respond. That they were getting a different set of requirements for each facility, which really caused us to step back and look at why do we need to have a standardized program, and how can we move forward with that. Part of that is also, looking at the background. A lot of that was cultural, right? A lot of we've done it this way for a long time, and it's worked for us. And so we a lot of work with our facility operations directors. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the things we've done with them, but to help kind of change that culture, that we have one emergency management program at the laboratory. We don't have 5 individual programs, which we had previously. Again, some of those other cultural things that we hope to change and continue to affect is strong policy documents, right? Clarifying roles and responsibilities, ensuring that everybody understands where they fit within the emergency preparedness program. As part of the effort to achieve kind of our best in class that we're looking for, we did extensive benchmarking. We looked at the Nevada National Security site, Berkeley, Livermore, WIP, other DOE and NSA sites, to find out who's got a really good program and what we can do to adapt that to meet the needs here at Los Alamos. I'm also heavily involved with EMI-SIG to leverage best practices for drills and exercises. All of those things that we've been benchmarking from all those different sites that have contributed to what we believe is a best-in-class program. David Silver now will present a little bit about our development and implementation, kind of where we're at. So I'll turn that over to David.
Thanks, Josh. So there's really, for the development of this facility preparedness program, there's really 2 foundational documents that really establish this program. One of them is the implementation plan. That's how we really intend to get there. It establishes those tasks and intended methods for the implementation of a standardized facility preparedness program. The second document, which we build upon, is the Facility Preparedness Program Plan. That's really the bones of how it works. And that's how we're really going to establish and maintain the standardized approach to emergency preparedness across the entire site here at Los Alamos. The Facility Preparedness Program Plan is based on and commensurate with the types of hazards present and the consequences in emergencies here at Los Alamos National Laboratory. And really the overall purpose, the goal of all this is to establish that standardized approach to facility preparedness across the entire site. So when we look kind of on a hierarchy level from the top down, we really are the driving force behind all this is DOE Order 151D. From that, we have our LANL All Hazards Emergency Management Plan, which flows down into this Facility Preparedness Program Plan. There's a couple other documents that we'll talk about a little bit later that integrate into this, but those are the Exercise Program Plan and the Drill Program Plan. They're both very important pieces of the overall facility preparedness program. And then the further down at the facility level, we really look at those facility-specific emergency plans and procedures and the building emergency procedures, the BEPs. So how does this really all work? The first thing that we need to do is we really need to designate facilities based on their all hazards emergency planning hazard surveys or emergency planning hazard assessments, the EPHS and the EPHAs. They form that all hazard scientific technical basis for planning, preparedness, and emergency response activities. Based on this classification, we designate facilities as either an Emergency Management Core Program facility, an EMCPF, or Emergency Management Hazardous Material Program facilities, EMHMPFs. The facility designation is what really sets that facility preparedness standard on a graded approach. So the more hazardous facilities have more requirements, and the core program facilities typically have less. The facilities that don't have an EPHA or don't require an EPHA are only required to have the requirements of an emergency management core program. The next thing that we really need to do is establish that consistency in the facility level preparedness. And that's those, the framework, the foundational framework and documents. So as I mentioned, we've developed a building emergency procedure that is applicable for all the facilities here at the laboratory that fall under the Emergency Management Hazardous Material Program facilities. We're also standardizing evacuation diagrams, safe shutdown and walkway procedures, and other facility level emergency responder checklists. And we'll talk about some of those positions here in a minute and how those are implemented at the facility level. The next thing is really establishing that standardized training program for the facility level responders. And where that starts is at the workers. The workers across the laboratory are required to take a incident reporting and protective actions training. That's required when you're a new employee, and then annually, and it's required for contractors and subcontractors, and it really sets the foundation of preparedness here at the laboratory. And then for the hazardous facilities, there is BEP, or Building Emergency Procedures specific training to really help orient workers to the requirements of that facility. The next training that we're really working on building out is the Facility Level Emergency Coordinator, which is a new position. I'll talk about that here in a minute on a couple slides. But facility level responders, which include the facility level emergency coordinator and a couple other folks, there's an established training program to really orient them to what their role and responsibilities are during an emergency. And then lastly, it's really integrating that preparedness program overall into our already established drill and exercise program to really test this and evaluate it on an ongoing basis and improve it as we move forward. So as I mentioned, facilities are broken down into two categories. There's the Emergency Management Core Program facilities. These are what make up pretty much the majority of the laboratory here at LANL. The building emergency procedure that is used for these facilities is our institutional incident reporting and protective actions policy. And this covers basic responses to typical alarms and emergencies that you would encounter across most buildings here at the laboratory. There's some facilities that have specific alarms or specific responses, and for those, they would use the same template that our emergency management hazardous material program facilities would use. So we're really trying to take a graded approach to this so that the facilities, again, that have the least number of hazards can use an institutional policy, and the ones that have the most are using a very specific procedural response document for those facilities. So as I mentioned, there's kind of a hierarchy of facility level response positions that are part of this facility preparedness program. The FLEC, the facility level emergency coordinator, is kind of at the heart of it all. They're a subject matter expert for the facility that they're assigned to. They're appointed by their facility operations director. It's a mandatory position for those more hazardous facilities, and they may be present in other facilities. So we have larger facilities that are a core facility here at LANL, and they may have a FLEC that helps coordinate the efforts for response at that facility. During an incident, the FLEC is the one that executes the initial emergency response actions for that facility. So they may help with the emergency response actions. They're helping to interface and coordinate with the incident responders, the emergency responders, and they're also going to support initial and follow-on protective actions. A couple other folks that are important that we already have established here but are building on are the assembly area leaders and shelter-in-place leaders. They're the ones that really gather accountability at an assembly area or shelter-in-place location and then report that information out to the first responders. A couple newer positions are the building wardens, the sector wardens, floor wardens. These all have specific roles and responsibilities to help coordinate tasks and kind of divvy up that work. So, for example, building wardens are there to help centralize and coordinate the tasks between assembly area leaders. Floor wardens are to gather that information about accountability and report it up to a building warden. Same with a sector warden. And these positions are not mandatory. Again, the more hazardous facilities will likely see these in the larger facilities. However, they are optional and voluntary positions to be used when needed. The last thing we're doing is really trying to make this information more accessible to the workers. So in addition to the building emergency procedure and the training that they would take, we're developing a GIS web application. And the idea behind this is to make it a visual tool and a one-stop shop for workers to go and find information out about their facility or buildings that they visit. So they can, on a graphical basis, go to this map and view where assembly areas are that are tied to that building, and also look at where shelter-in-place locations are for that building if they're applicable. This map will also be able to drive them towards the building emergency procedure that's specific to that building if they need to know where that is, or to reach out to their emergency preparedness coordinator that's specifically assigned to that building. I'm going to turn back over to Josh, and we're going to talk about where we're going with this program.
So when we started out kind of embarking on our facility preparedness program, we didn't want just a good program. We weren't necessarily even interested in a better program. We were really focused on creating the best in class we possibly could. We truly believe that that's the product that we have developed, and that's been one of our goals has really been to create the best in class program. To do that, right, we've established a very robust emergency preparedness group that contains not only site level preparedness but also at the facilities, and we'll continue to grow and develop that emergency preparedness group dedicated to emergency preparedness here at the laboratory. We are also looking at teamwork as a key component to where we're going. We recognize real quickly that facility preparedness involves all kinds of people, right? That have to be involved in what we're looking for with emergency preparedness. It takes a significant effort from all kinds of groups and divisions and organizations to come together to support where we're going with this. We have identified key personnel to help establish coordination of the resources that we need to accomplish that implementation. As I mentioned earlier about some of our stakeholders, our facility operations directors are vital as they implement the emergency preparedness program, and they really have a large part to play in the development of the program, and we have clearly defined their roles and responsibilities in our facility preparedness program, and that has been a key component of where we're going to collaborate with those facility operations directors and to partner with them to implement the facility preparedness program. I'll turn it over to David. He's going to come and finish out our slides.
So again, as I mentioned earlier, the implementation plan is really important for the facility preparedness program. It really helps drive the full implementation from concept all the way to execution of the program. So we really have looked at dividing that into major milestones, including the development and execution of that schedule, and then how we're actually going to roll the program out once it's developed. we're looking at a two fiscal year rollout period. So by the end of fiscal year 2021 is when the program will be completely rolled out. And there's a number of stakeholders, as Josh mentioned, who are part of that rollout, and it's a very large effort. Once the project is closed out, it'll be completion of all the project deliverables that we have, the implementation of the program, and then evaluation of how it actually is implemented. Of course, acceptance by our division leader that the program has been rolled out correctly and effectively. And then, of course, we're going to look back and see how well was it rolled out. Of course, with a hot washing critique, but also drills and exercises to see how well the program is being implemented at the facilities. So in closing, we're continually a learning organization. We're committed to continuous improvements. We're going to continue to grow and build this program. It's not a stagnant program. We're committed to establishing and maintaining a standardized approach to emergency preparedness across all facilities here at the laboratory to improve worker preparedness and response during an emergency. And with that, we'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and we're going to get right to questions. The first one comes in from Patty Billy. Did you experience any pushback with the facilities programs when you first introduced the concept?
Josh, can you take that one?
Yeah, you bet. So we were very upfront with the facilities as we were developing the program, understanding that we needed a lot of buy-in from the programs up front. There's been minimal pushback from those facilities and programs because they have been involved as a stakeholder from the very beginning, and that's been kind of our key strategy in working through that.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. This looks like a difficult program to implement. Where are you at with implementing the program, and how are you tracking it?
I can take that one. This is Anna Strong. First, I just real quick want to thank my peers for recording and covering the slides. Unfortunately, I was on a 14-day self-isolation, the trials and tribulations of working through a global pandemic. But yes, that assumption is correct. It is difficult, to say the least. It's not been easy, but we have rewritten our program. We took this opportunity, again, to standardize the Facility Preparedness Program and to align and implement DOE Order 151.1D. We got a lot of stakeholders involved, but we do have a very detailed, as mentioned in the PowerPoint, implementation plan and detailed project schedule. So we are, again, targeting the FY 2021 implementation. The pandemic has definitely slowed us down a little bit, but we're still pushing through and expecting full implementation by that time. But again, some things that have been slowed down a little bit is just implementation at the facility level during this maximize work phase.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question from Keith McGuire. Will this be a 24/7 program where drills are conducted on the off shifts as well as the day shifts?
Yeah, this is Josh. I can go ahead and answer that. We have several operations at the laboratory that are moving to a 24-hour operations. And, the expectation is that we believe those operation centers and other facility pieces will be involved in conducting after-hours drills, those kinds of things. We have a 24/7 emergency operations support center. And so, I think it's fairly reasonable to say that, yes, we do expect some off-shift emergency drills to be conducted at those facilities where we have 24-hour operations. But yet, those details are still to be worked out. We're not quite there yet as far as when those drills and how those exactly will roll out yet.
All right, thank you very much. And unfortunately, we've got we've reached the end of our time. There are two other questions that I will relate to the three of you, and I'll let you answer that at your leisure. Please, if you have additional questions, go ahead and scroll down on the Attendify app and click on their names, and you'll get their email address, and you can question them till your heart's content. I'd like to thank David, not Daniel, Joshua and Anna for their time and informative presentation. Please complete the survey by clicking on the survey icon just below the description in the virtual meeting app in order to receive credit for attending this session. Coming up next is the panel discussion, Benchmarking Best Practices and Challenges. Thanks for joining us.